Never thought I'd say this, but I think this needed some water skiing. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2003 fantasy comedy remake, Freaky Friday. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and recommendations. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and even some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Freaky Friday stars Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Mark Harmon, and was directed by Mark Waters. It tells the story of a mother and teenage daughter who swap bodies and must spend a day in each other's shoes while trying to find a way to swap back before a big wedding. Yup, it's time to talk about another Disney live-action remake. Only this time, it's a remake of another live-action movie. In fact, this 2003 version of Freaky Friday is technically the second remake of this film, if you count the 1995 made-for-TV movie released as part of the Wonderful World of Disney anthology series. Like sequels, it's usually a case of diminishing returns with remakes. I mean, how many times can you watch the same story? Especially after having read the book, too, in this case. The original Freaky Friday movie was released at the tail end of the Disney live-action film boom of the 60s and 70s. Considered a comedy classic by many, it was a body swap comedy pioneer, influencing many other movies in the genre and beyond. The 90s and early 2000s was a time period that saw Disney remaking many of their 60s and 70s family comedies. Flubber, That Darn Cat, The Shaggy Dog, even the Lindsay Lohan starring The Parent Trap. The 30-year nostalgia cycle was alive and well even back then, so even though it was a little unconventional to remake a film for a second time, and so soon after the first time, Disney took a calculated gamble and greenlit another version. And it was a gamble that paid off, resulting in one of the rarest of all film phenomena, a remake that's better than the original. Partly based on the book, partly based on the 1976 original film, and partly based on the story changes made in the 1995 film, this movie is an amalgamation of ideas. You'd think that'd be a recipe for disaster, a Frankenstein's monster of freaky proportions, but amazingly, it actually works in the film's favor. The basic premise is the same and just as good as it ever was. A mother and teenage daughter swap bodies and are forced to experience a day in each other's shoes. In the original film, that was basically all the movie ever amounted to, just a series of swap-related gags with no real consequential moments for the characters, and only a cursory final moment of understanding and bonding between mother and daughter. In this remake, the story is greatly fleshed out. Rather than jumping right into the body-swapping shenanigans, the first act follows these two women through a day in each other's lives, giving us a chance to understand them and see the daily challenges they each face before instituting the switch. This structural change allows the film to set up their strained relationship, as well as important consequential ticking clock events for each of them. A big break-making band audition for Anna, and a wedding for Tess. As opposed to the father's Aquacades event in the original film, these two events are motivating factors in the lives of the two body-swapping protagonists. So it adds a sense of urgency to the story, as well as clear-cut ways for the two characters to finally find common ground with one another. This much-improved story execution helps to keep the film compelling, but just like with the original film starring Jodie Foster and Barbara Harris, it's the performances that are the true make-or-break quality for this movie. Before I get to the two leads, I do want to briefly mention some of the supporting characters, most of whom didn't factor into the original story much or at all. The most significant of these characters is Mark Harmon's Ryan, Tessa's fiancé. I think his is both an underappreciated role and performance, and he's got some of the funniest and sweetest moments in the film outside of the two leads. Despite an overly contrived subplot, Chad Michael Murray is also fairly solid as Anna's love interest, Jake, the much cooler, motorcycle-riding, hives and vines listening equivalent to the original film's Boris, who, by the way, makes a fun little cameo appearance here. Most probably don't give these other characters much notice, but as a 13-year-old when this movie came out, I really liked a few of the members of Anna's band, Pink Slip, most notably her best friend Maddie, played by Christina Vidal, who I've thought was just about the coolest person ever since her role as Gabby in my favorite Disney Channel original movie, Brink. But what about our two body-swapping leads? Well, they're both very good here, believable in not only their original state, but also in their personality-switched roles. Lindsay Lohan has the "you're ruining my life" overdramatically angsty 2000s pop-punk teen persona down pat, but she was also really entertaining when taking on the straight-laced and out-of-touch motherly role of Tess, too. But the big performance star of this movie is unquestionably Jamie Lee Curtis. She had been in a handful of comedy movies before this, but I think this is the film where she was best able to show off her comedic chops. She's so funny here as the overworked psychiatrist mom, stressed and in the final day of wedding planning. But as an angry and rebellious 15-year-old trapped in the body of a 45-year-old on the eve of her wedding, she's never been funnier. Her facial reactions, her line delivery, her energetic and emotion-forward interactions with everybody from her fiancé to her patients to her son and daughter, the latter of which being the only one clued in on the situation. It's all just so incredibly entertaining. Seriously, the shot of Jamie Lee Curtis absolutely shredding that guitar solo off stage is one of my favorite movie mental images to this day. Much like the original film, this 2003 remake can't help but be a product of its time. Steeped in an angsty, drama-filled pop-punk aesthetic, teenage life in this movie has a distinctly 2000s feel to it, which some will find nostalgic and others will find eye-rolling. Jake's stalkery subplot comes across much less funny than it once did, and the Chinese mysticism trope feels more like something that would have been a dated stereotype present in a 70s original and subsequently removed from the remake, but this is an otherwise pleasant cinematic time capsule. It takes a story that should have felt overdone and way too familiar, and instead improves upon it to create something that's both entertaining and heartfelt. Unlike the 1976 movie, this film is funny beyond just a series of gags, and more importantly, it doesn't shy away from its core mother-daughter relationship, not only acknowledging its themes of understanding and acceptance, but incorporating them directly into the plot. I know we all tend to want to see more original films, but this is an example of a remake done right. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is definitely the performances. Mark Harmon is really underappreciated and charming here as Ryan, and I've always thought Maddie, and by extension Christina Vidal, was the epitome of cool, but just like the original film, it's the body-swapping lead duo who really carry things here. Lindsay Lohan is once again solid in a Disney remake, and not for the last time either, embodying the angsty pop-punk drama of Anna extremely believably, and the out-of-touch motherly persona almost as well. But the big star of the show and the absolute standout here is Jamie Lee Curtis, who manages to deliver an exceedingly funny and entertaining performance, going all in on emulating the mannerisms, speech patterns, and attitude of a teenage girl to hilarious effect. The second pro is the story. I don't know about you, but this isn't the kind of thing I usually expect to see pop up on the pro side of a family film remake, and yet here we are. It's got the same entertaining premise as the 1976 original film, of course, but also features a really great story execution this time around, going beyond just a series of body swap related gags to give us a more fleshed out story that provides not only an actual plot, but motivations and a thematic reckoning for the two lead characters. On the con side, the biggest issue is actually a bit of an offshoot of the second pro, as strange as that may sound. Although the story execution and plot were much improved over the original film, this remake did include a few subplots that were unnecessary, left unfinished, or simply went a little too far. As much as I always disliked the lack of explanation for the body swap in the original movie, the decision to go with the Chinese mysticism trope here felt a few decades too dated. The addition of Anna's former best friend turned bully was a bit undercooked and never really went anywhere, and finally, the handling of Jake was a little strange. I know they were basing aspects of that character's story arc on Boris from the original movie, but took things a little too far with a weird subplot that felt out of character for him, even based on just the 5 or so minutes we had had with him by that point of the movie. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Freaky Friday, or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy in one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them, if you're in the market for any of these movies, or anything else. I'm gonna give Freaky Friday 3.5 out of 5 paws, though this is very close to a nostalgia-driven 4 paws for me. This 2003 film is the best version of the Freaky Friday tale we have, greatly improving the story execution and telling a surprisingly solid mother-daughter story. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis are both great in their roles, both as themselves and as each other, with Jamie Lee Curtis in particular delivering arguably the most entertaining performance of her illustrious career. I would recommend Freaky Friday to anybody looking for a fun family comedy. It's got the distinct flavor of an early 2000s teen movie, but is likely much better than you're probably expecting, with a good story and some surprisingly funny moments. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis fans will have a great time with their performances here, and I think even fans of the original Freaky Friday will appreciate the significant fleshing out of the story and characters in this remake. If you liked Freaky Friday, I would recommend the 1998 version of The Parent Trap, another remake of a film from Disney's live-action boom of the 60s and 70s. This film features a different kind of body-swapping storyline, as Lindsay Lohan and Lindsay Lohan play twins separated at birth who meet at a summer camp and decide to swap places in order to get to know the parent they've never met. If you'd like another fantasy comedy with an ultra early 2000s feel, you might want to watch 13 Going on 30. Jennifer Garner plays Jenna, a 13-year-old girl who suddenly finds herself in the body of her future 30-year-old self, and must learn how to be an adult while trying to figure out how to get back to her 13-year-old life. Like Freaky Friday, this adult inhabiting film is both heartfelt and funny, with Garner giving a very entertaining performance. Prefer to stay in the key of rock? Then you'll definitely want to check out School of Rock. Although there's no fantastical body swapping, this fun early 2000s comedy stars Jack Black as a guitarist who impersonates a substitute teacher and decides to turn his 5th grade prep school class into a rock band in order to compete in a Battle of the Bands competition. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Freaky Friday? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite Disney live-action remake? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.